guys, welcome back. My name is Shin, and as you can tell from the title of today's video, we are going to discover 5 steps that create a good Facebook ad that actually converts. Now, I understand that during this crisis, a lot of companies has actually cut down on their marketing budget and has eased out from these advertising platforms. But as the country currently are almost fully lifted, if you are considering going back to the advertising platforms, I hope that you will find these 5 steps useful and help you to obtain a better ROI. However, this is not a step-by-step guide on how to launch a Facebook ad because I believe there are already tons of videos with better quality images who have already done that. What I'm trying to do here today is to share my insights for people who perhaps has already run the Facebook ad for a while and did not see significant results, or people who has already very experienced in the Facebook advertising platforms and wanted to understand that what else they could do for another breakthrough. So if you fall under the second categories and you think that you have even better tips than me, do share in the comment sections down below so that we can all improve it together. So before we begin, do subscribe to this channel and give this video a thumbs up. I would really appreciate that. Now, step 1 is to be really specific with your audience. Now ask yourself, who do you serve, what are you serving, and what is the result you generate? On the other word is, who is your audience, what are the products and services, and what is the benefits? This probably sounds very basic for any marketers, but because Facebook allowed you to target really specific audiences all the way from their job title, industry, their behaviors, and much more, when it comes to create a Facebook ad, you want it to be even more specific compared to how you do your other marketing collateral. And again, this is all because Facebook have the privilege for you to speak to audiences that you wanted to attract and showing your ad to the exact right people. Now, just to give you a better understanding of what I meant by here is, for example, if Nike is using Just Do It as their core message of most of the marketing collateral, when it comes to a Facebook ads level, what can they potentially do is to say, hey Josh, hey runners, or hey dancers, just do it. Instead of just using Just Do It as a general statement, this is exactly why I fall in love in Facebook ads, because it really allows you to target a very specific type of audiences and speak according to their language in order to attract them and become your customers. Now you might ask, how do I know which audiences is the right target audiences for me? Well, in my previous video, I mentioned that a company should always use a persona of their top spending customers to attract the same pool of audiences who has the higher potential to convert. So if you'd like to know more about how I did it, you can check out the previous video that I've done. So once you have identified a very specific type of audiences, you can now craft a very specific message dedicatedly to that type of audiences. And in the beginning, I would suggest you to do your A/B testing with the same creative images. What I have done before is just by tweaking the first sentence of my original ad copy and tweak it as if I'm speaking to that specific group of people, and also change my targeting to that particular audiences, it has given me a fantastic results. What gives me this idea at the time is I was speaking to a girlfriend of mine who is working as an air stewardess, and we discussed topics such as how much she has earned and what are the challenges she faced as an air stewardess. So it then gives me ideas and realize that, oh, actually this pool of people, even though they are not in town very often, but because they have that kind of spending power and this is a huge need in their life, so it makes me realize that this pool of people can potentially be a very good demographics that fits into my company. So when I was already having the regular ads running, all I did was to change the first sentence becomes, have you been flying for a really long hours and looking for a detox massage? And the rest was following the benefits that I've mentioned in the original ads. At the time, I was just thinking to just test out these new audiences, and I'm so surprised that it worked so well even with the same exact image. So from there onwards, I learned that when it comes to crafting a good Facebook ad, you really want to have a very specific audiences at the back of your mind, and your tonality of the ad become very specific as if you are speaking to one of your friends. Now, step 2 is to understand the differences between features and benefits. So in my cases, I often receive the ad brief or ad request from my boss or one of my R&D colleagues, because both of them would have know how much stock that or what are the latest treatments that we are about to launch. And in that sense, both of them are rather scientific. And when I'm receiving information from them, it's really easy for me to caught up with the technical expertise and has misread what is the customer needs and interest. So here I have 3 examples showing you what are the key differences between benefits and features. So the first one, 30 minutes of X machine is equivalent to 20,000 of setup. So this is usually the features and what the supplier or even my colleagues will feed me. But what it really meant and resonates with the customers is that it saves your time going to the gyms, or it has reserved your energy from the spin class. So the second example I have for you is that maybe these machines only require 4 treatments in a year. So again, these 4 treatments in a year is a features, but what it really meant to the customer is that worth your money, it has a very long-lasting result, so that you don't have to commit with us long-term. So for marketers, instead of using the features, you should use the message and what really resonates with the customer interest. And the last examples that I have for you today is these machines have 6 types of light frequencies that penetrates into your skin. So from the customer perspective, perhaps they don't really care how many types of light or frequencies that penetrate into your skin. All they wanted to know is that these machines penetrate to the deepest level of your skin, and it allowed yourself to regenerate collagen later on by itself. So these are the benefits that the customer wanted to hear versus the features of the treatments that you're offering. So I find these tips really useful, not just in crafting a Facebook ad, but also in general marketing usage, because by spelling the correct needs and interests of your customers, it makes your ad become very relatable. And in this fast-paced social media world, what really attracts a customer is how well a company can keep their consumer engaged. Step 3 is the creative, which most often people find this is the hardest part, but also the most important part, because literally image is the only one thing that stops you from scrolling your Instagram or your Facebook feed. And in today's world, everything seems like it needs to be very aesthetically pleasing, but not every company could afford a really good or experienced designers. And even they could afford a designer, perhaps he or she is not really experienced, or he or she doesn't really have a huge team where every time you have something launched, you can literally put up a photo shoot section for that thing. So a lot of the time, company relies on stock images in order to get the creative tastefully done. Well, I do not disagree with companies to use stock images as their image libraries, so to tap into more resources when it comes to designing an ad. But there's 2 perspectives I would like you to think first before you start paying a subscription to a stock image company. First is how long are you planning to run this ad? Second is how often you launch a new product or services. This is because if you're going to have a new product or services every single week, it makes sense for you to invest in stock images because your ad is less likely to run in a longer period of time, and since your team are going to need a very huge image library, using a stock image to test if this product is it going to be an evergreen product is definitely a cost-effective way to go. However, if you already knew that this product or services is going to be a star product or is already a star product in your company, I would highly suggest you to actually invest a little bit more time and effort into crafting a very original creative that is 100% representing your company image and it serves the purpose of your company branding, while also using this as an asset to generate leads for your company. But nevertheless, using stock image has been a norm for many industries, and the only tips I want to share with you today is to understand which model has been abusively used in your industry. Because what happened in my industry is if you are going to a mall, which they arrange the same categories of tenant in the same aisle, you will literally see the same model, the same face across different brands and shops. So this is something that I wish company could avoid, because consumer can really tell if you are using a stock image or an actual person to represent your company. So to avoid that, make sure you have a very clear communication with your designers and ask them to really research on what models the companies has been using, and don't choose those who are already been abusively used in your industry. The second tips I have here for you today is that since everyone is going to have the same access towards the stock image library, what you can advise your designer to do is to play on the elements rather than the aesthetic. For example, I once used a tomato to represent a breast cancer symptoms, and this is actually inspired from this egg image that I saw online during my research. Now you see, When you switch your perspective on playing the element rather than the aesthetic, the model right here doesn't play a much important role anymore because it really is the thought behind the ad that counts. And what's more, you can also always use another project to represent the original objects. For example, you can use a balloon to represent a big belly. You can use a ripe banana skin to represent hyperpigmentation, and so on. You get the idea. The second tip is to use a lifestyle images. Now, always remind your designers to relate rather than impress, because when it comes to a Facebook context, what relates with consumer is really a lifestyle images rather than a very commercialized images. But of course, if you can put full force on it, for example, like how the masterclass did it with really perfect cinematic, then yes, you can definitely choose a very commercialized style. And I've got to say that I'm really enjoying every single ad that the masterclass has put on. So in conclusion, if your company could afford a good photographer that actually takes actual pictures of your product or services with relevant background and with good ambience, it will always appear to me be more appealing compared to stock image, regardless on how good your designer is going to touch up. And this is because consumers these days are really smart and they can tell the differences between a stock image and a natural images. And let's be real, when you are as a consumer scrolling through your feed, I'm sure that you can also tell that you will be more related towards the lifestyle version rather than the very commercial type of images. So the most important things when it comes to creative is that, is this image or is this creative going to create an emotion that leads to an action? So if your designers can do either with stock images or with real images that can actually create an emotion, this will help you significantly in creating a good Facebook ad. So step 4, it's all about the ad copy. So a killer ad always consists of good targeting with a good combination of both image and text. So to have a good ad copy, of course you're going to take step 1 and 2 into consideration. But again, I'm not going to tell you step by step how to write a good ad copy, but instead give you my insights in these sections, because when I first started to launch this ad, I have a very experienced person who actually told me that you should keep your ad text short, because when your ad text has reached to a certain amount, this will actually wouldn't show the entire ad text of course, but instead it will have this drop down buttons of see more. So he told me that this is something that we should avoid in order to get better conversions. But over the course of 3 years, I've tried both short and long, and what I've really found out is that it wasn't the length that is actually mattered. Because if you have noticed, when it comes to live coaching or a lot of online courses, most of their ads are actually long. And because I have attended one of the courses that Pengjun has conducted, and I can finally spot the patterns on how they created those long ad text copies, because most of this time they really have a framework. There's this 4 tips that he shares in order to create a very good sales page. So it always starts with a universal question, and usually the answer for that question is always yes. For example, do you want to lose weight? Do you want more money? Do you want to have more time? Do you want to be more healthy? Most of the ads start with these universal questions, and then they will use a story to illustrate the concept of the offering that they want to sell. So they will add a personal story. For example, I have tried all of the methods to lose weight, but it never really does work. And the third part of that framework is that they will show you how they did it. Like, I have tried my method that I developed for this amount of time. It has transformed my life, and this is how it has transformed other people as well. And the 4th is usually the closing part, which is usually what is their call to action. I realized that this framework is commonly being used in the e-educational, in the life coaching ad. So people who are falling under the categories tend to have a longer ad text, whereas on another category, perhaps it's more FMCG, or like me, I'm in beauty and services, we don't tend to have such a long text, because I think the consumer that we ultimately attract has a different pattern. And in my cases, I've tried, one is like really brief and one is like really short. Both of them does work, but it goes back to whether or not are you really writing your text as if you are speaking to a very specific type of person. And second thing is, have you differentiate the distinctive differences between benefits and features, because maybe you have write everything that you think you've done right, but because that point itself that you have mentioned doesn't resonate with the consumer, so it didn't really illustrate a good pictures for them, so that would again affect your conversion. So the few steps I have for you is to have a constant stream of inspiration, and this is actually in fact one of the most important things that I would like to point out, because while I was doing my research, I see that not a lot of people has actually mentioned it. So what I meant by a constant stream of inspiration is that when you are running your Facebook ads, at the same time you also wanted to make sure that all of the social media accounts have the same feed or information that is also telling something about it. So how I would like you to imagine is that your social media feed profile, imagine that as your house, and whatever ad that you're doing is like sending out an invitations for audiences that you would like to invite them to come and visit your house. So when your ad appeared to a person that you have never met before, but you wish him or her to come to visit your house, you wanted to make sure that what they see on the ad is showing the same thing when they come to your house. And also, you don't want to create frictions for the end consumer. So you might think that, okay, maybe the first 3 posts that I'm seeing wasn't about the ad offering that I was seeing, but actually the last 30 posts that I was posting is all about this offering. But again, if you're expecting the consumer to actually dig down to your previous post and to find out more about the particular treatments, then you are actually creating more frictions to your audiences, which I think everyone should avoid. But this is easier said than done, especially for a company who are constantly running ads like mine. We've been literally running ads for a few treatments that we've been tested that it works. So from there, how it works is because we really knew what are the targeting and what sort of image that it could really perform. So for us, the social media feeds serve another purpose right now. But if you're just started your company, and if your company have a very streamline of product and services, I would highly recommend you guys to try this out to deliver a very clear stream of inspirations to the audiences. Now, I've tried this before and I would say the result is amazing. The click-through rate is particularly high, and besides that, you will also gain a very significant amount of followers when you do this right. Oftentimes people will ask me, is creating content more important than generating leads? And I will always use the same metaphor, which is feed is sort of like the furniture that you want to put inside. So this is ultimately the home that you're living in, the core business, the core services that you're offering. But an ad is like an invitation to reach out to more people so that it grow awareness for your product and services. Make sure to try these tips out because it really does give you a lot of conversion, and if it's not conversion, it will also give you a lot of positive awareness as well. Alright, so that's it for my 5 steps to create a better Facebook ad. Now, it is not guaranteed that if you have followed through all of these 5 steps, you will get the same result that I have, because when it comes to launching a good Facebook ad, there is a lot of factors that you need to take into consideration. However, if you follow through all of these 5 tips, it would definitely increase the chances of you creating a better ad and also getting a better result. Once again, if you find these tips useful, make sure that you hit the subscribe button, and as always, stay inspired. I will see you in my next video. Bye!